3.2 External Projects, Project 6 Opportunities. I wanted to put together this short video. It's in connection with some work concerning external projects, the Museum of Carpet here in Kidderminster, and also how a collaboration has developed with a machine knitter. Just after Christmas, I purchased myself a vintage knitting machine. It's called the Bond Elite. It's a single bed knitting machine, just to start me off, to start to produce some more refined knitting. I'd also started to teach myself some hand knitting, and I've also got various bits of equipment, a circular knitter, and also some loom knitting. But as we can see so far, up to project 6, I've started to pick up the knitting machine and have produced some samples up until this point. I've decided that it's my way forward and is going to be my textile discipline, stroke with mixed media. So I'd like to continue and carry on and discuss my collaboration with Andrew Potter. I am also thinking about doing a case study with Andrew to inform how this collaboration has kind of now become part of my project, because he's guiding me through and he's showing me some teaching techniques and so forth, and he's also got an interesting background. He still continues to knit, specifically with the Bond knitting machine, so it's been a new process of learning. And he's just a really interesting man, and very kind and helpful to possibly carry out the case study with me, and to allow me to use him for this video footage for my collaboration. So it happened last week, last Thursday, and he came to my house, and here we have the sample of my teachings. It was a one-to-one session. I set up the machine for him and so forth, and got everything prepared with all the tools and the equipment so he could carry on and do a teaching session, which he used to do years ago, for people that were to purchase a Bond knitting machine, we should say. So he would do demos to inform them what they could do, and then obviously proceed with a pattern book and so forth to make a jumper or a knitted garment. So here we can see he started off by teaching some bobble techniques, and then a jacquard, and then a braid, or can't remember now what this was called, but also some block colour. This one he said that I would particularly like was the honeycomb, which also as well on the reverse is quite interesting. He did see some of my work and he says that he thought that this was applicable. It's a nice technique, and also as well he taught me how to do some ribbing, which was pretty straightforward. And then through here, if you knit through a square by measuring it through and miss out some stitches, you can actually make a check. So all in all, this sample is giving me a mini project. I have to practice these techniques, and so what I've done is I've started to put together a folder where I've practiced. So there was my ribbing, there was my hole technique. He taught me how to do holes. This has now developed, and I've researched via YouTube how to make a large hole, which I've used in one of my samples in Project 6, where I can actually place the sample over the head. This is actually going to develop, I think, into Project 7, where I'm going to make holes and loops and do some more kind of distorted demonstrations of the red line and raised line of the paper. Also as well, what we've been learning are edges, finishing off edges, crocheted edges. You have to cast on with a weight bar, and he showed me how to cast on specifically so that when you remove the knitting, you get a nice clean edge. Again, this is going to possibly be something that I'm going to push forward for Project 7 and future experimentations of edges, covering the subject matter lines and finishing off. In a tutorial, this was discussed that this would be important as it also demonstrates the technical aspect of knitting, rather than just a sample that's finished off in a scruffy manner, we could say. Here was my attempt at one of the harder techniques. It's not the braid, but I have got it written down in my technical book that was printed off. This is Andrew's, as we can see that this is particularly perfect. So he left this with me, something that I've started to practice. Because I'm a visual learner, it was ideal for the fact that he did the demos. But I think any practitioner will agree as to whether it could be a sewing machine or a knitting machine. I think they are very temperamental, and also as well, you have to use the correct weight yarn, and also make sure that you're using tension. Tension is something, especially particularly with the Bond knitting machine, you have to feed the yarn through the fingertips and the carriage. So if your tension's too tight, the carriage will either not move or it distorts the knit, and it sometimes could possibly make the needles disconnect from the carriage, and that's when the whole sample falls off. This through here is just some knitting that was self-taught. This was completely different, a completely different knitting machine. It was on a child's 1980s hobby girl. Bought it on eBay for about £10. But again, we can do bobbles, and I did some colour swatching with that. That's pretty straightforward. Again, useful technique. Just moving on, he kindly went through and printed off the original pattern book that went with the Bond machine. Now this has made me buy a second knitting machine. I purchased a Bond Classic, which he said was the better of the machines. Both machines are kind of do various things. Again, he explained to me that the Bond Classic remained in production for 30 years. The Bond Elite wasn't so successful on the commercial market, but both are now vintage. There were a few problems with the Elite one. I couldn't get it to work at first, and that was because the mechanism inside the needles are raised with foam sponge, and this is disintegrated. So he also taught me how to dismantle the machine and repair that. So I pretty much have a brand new knitting machine there. So that has been used for a proportion of the sample making. I can alternate and use in between the Bond Classic and the Elite, which is good. So if I want to start something that's large scale, I can swap in between and rest at some point with the sample making. So all of this is particularly relevant and useful. It moves on, it talks about yarns and the sizes of plates that you get within the carriage, because the plate works with tension. And then it proceeds to actually make you, or teach you how to make you jumper and garments, stripes, lace patterns. Teaches you how to make your necks, V-necks, a raglan sleeve, cardigans. The cable. That's what I was trying to explain, was the cable knit. This is particularly very difficult with the tension if you don't get the right yarn. So he's been teaching me that and so forth. Pretty much, very much classic stuff, but all relevant. And I think even though the machine is basic, it will give me a good foundation to my learning. Now, I wanted to move on and discuss my external carpet museum interaction with external partners. Yesterday, I received an email back. I popped in to do a one-to-one inquiry as I was getting nothing back with emails. And so I spoke to the guy that is responsible for exhibitions and organising, and they have agreed for me to be able to go in and set up a display in one of their cabinets where I can put some foam boards with information, have my sketchbook, have my mannequin with samples dotted around and so forth to produce a miniature exhibition. In the email, he did request some samples. It wasn't their kind of thing because obviously they're carpet based, but he has offered me a slot in September 2024. They are thinking of doing a large exhibition about carpets and fashion. I possibly have a feeling that it could be in connection with Vivienne Westwood and the carpet dresses, which would be absolutely fabulous. I don't know whether they would take me on because the work is more contemporary and experimental, but we shall have to wait and see. So over the next few weeks, I'm just waiting for them to get back to me. They need to dismantle an existing exhibition that they've got on at the moment for me to be able to use the display cabinets and some of the display stands and so forth, which will be fantastic. And then I can get some documentation and some videos of my work set in a textile stroke museum environment, which was my first choice. As to whether I will go with any of the others choices, the library, Bewdley Museum was way too expensive and the waiting list is long. And like I have previously mentioned in video, the Midlands Arts Centre, I don't think were particularly interested in student work. So hopefully I will keep my blog updated on this. As to say, I am particularly interested in the Carpet Museum, so we shall wait and see. And I have early on in my projects starting to build up my own contact list of various practitioners that come through the salon at work, in my hairdressing job, and when I'm able to talk to people. I've got a very interesting lady here. She is a carpet designer for Brintons. I would love to do a case study with her, but as to whether it's relevant at this time where I'm at, but I always sort of, we talk design and we talk about, heritage and so forth when she comes in to have her hair done. Sarah Stokes is a fine artist. She helped me with the email and so forth for the Bewdley Museum. So she's coming in next week, actually, so I'll be able to have a good catch up with her. I've got Andrew Potter at the present, and I've also, which I think I'm going to do a case study on, one of my clients, Wendy. She's retired, but she used to teach for a very long time children with dyslexia. So this will be particularly interesting. And also as well, I've had communication with Steve Cousins. I'm going to possibly be doing my case study via Zoom and record this. With all the case studies, I'm thinking of doing 4. I want to make all the questions different because they are different people, they're different backgrounds and different subject matters. So I really need to focus these questions. And also as well, I think I'm going to possibly push forward. I have another client who's got a daughter at Central St Martin's who is pretty more advanced with her studies, and she has chosen knit as her discipline. So I've got plenty to go on, plenty of work, but I just wanted to capture the ideas that I've got processing and generating at the moment with external projects and my collaboration for project 6, 7, 8, 9, and then obviously my conclusions in 10.